Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories. Today on Big Sound Small Town, I'm in the Hunt House Bed and Breakfast in Lattimore, North Carolina to talk with my guest, Jackson Martin, who is a second generation Cleveland County musician. Welcome to the show, Jackson.
Thank you for having me.
All right, where would you like to begin this story?
Well, I think I'll start by just saying that I've followed this since you contacted me, and it's been very interesting to see the other interviews, and it's an absolute honor to even be considered for this kind of podcast. So thanks for contacting me.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on here. You have a different story than anyone I've had on here before. I mean, your dad is a big part of Cleveland County music history, and you're a second generation and speak to a whole different group of people. So I'm just tickled to death to have you here.
Glad to be here. And Dad's generation has been a huge influence on me. You and I were talking earlier. You know, he was in two bands for a long time and a third band, and you'll have to get him on this podcast.
Oh yes, I plan to.
And
you'll have to help me probably.
Yeah, I'll be glad to spur him on that. But you know, to hear the stories of the good old days and the musicianship, and then the recordings that were passed down to me.
Right.
Mike Lynch, Doug Ross, and Chris Rogers played in a band with Dad called the Mellow Fellas, and they recorded a live show at the Vault in Forest City, I think in like '98, and I listened to that tape from 8th grade until I was like 21 years old. It's like one of the only 5 albums that I listened to over and over. And so, yeah, pretty big influence on my musician career.
And that Vault used to be a bank.
That's right.
So
That's right.
For people who are listening, that was a bank in Forest City that was turned into a music venue.
Yes. And it was a great show, but I remember not being too interested at the time and not realizing, how much of an impact. In fact, me and my buddy Eric left about halfway through that show and just went and walked around town because we thought that was more interesting than the show. I hate to admit that. Sorry, Dad.
All right, so we're getting an idea of where you started listening to music.
Yeah.
Did during this time you growing up, was your dad around the house playing, or just?
Yeah, Dad, had the banjo and the guitar, and he pretty much played the guitar every night. Just sat in his shop and practiced and played. And I got a good feel of him playing and those guys coming over and practicing with him, and that was super interesting. But we always had a piano laying around or a fiddle. In fact, Dad still has both of his grandfather's fiddles.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's my great grandfather's fiddles on two different branches there. And my grandmother, his mother, played the organ at Lattimore Church for 40 years. So music was going to be a part of my life. I just didn't really know it. And he taught me Twinkle Twinkle on the fiddle.
Oh, yeah.
And a few chords on the guitar. But pretty much I started playing sax in the middle school and high school band. And
where would that have been?
That was 97 to 2002. Graduated from Crest. Then went to NC State, and I took my piano and my fiddle and my saxophone and messed around with my roommate Chance Witherspoon and sweet mate Tommy Peak and a few of those guys, and we actually did record some music.
Oh, that's
but it was mostly just for fun, and I hope it does not surface. And one day he said, why don't we go try out for this bluegrass band at NC State? And I said, we're not good enough for that. But we went anyway, and they accepted us into Wolfgrass, the bluegrass band at NC State. And so, again, not really a fiddle player, but we're going to fake it till I make it. And we jumped right in there, and that was one of my first bands. And it's interesting that when you called me, I was thinking, maybe he's going to interview me about being a DJ. And I thought, well, I'll talk a little bit about my band history. And I went through my Facebook pictures, and I was like, oh, there's a band I was in. Oh, there's a band I was in. 10 bands since college is how many bands I was in.
Would you like to run a list of those?
I absolutely would like to. And the musicians that I played with in this town, there's, the musicians in Shelby, I give them all, 7 to 10s.
I agree.
And I've always felt like a 3 that, just jumped in and kind of held on and again, fake it till you make it. Sax player, keyboard player. And but it's because of all the musicians in this town that gave me that helped build my music career, which did ultimately turn into a DJ and my Wolfman Entertainment business, which has been a great side job.
So now you came back from North Carolina State. You played the bluegrass there. Come back, right, and actually get a job.
That's right.
And then you started hooking back up with people you knew here musically. Is that how that happened?
That is, naturally, you have to have a job to support your musicianship.
Yeah.
And so I started teaching at Shelby High and did that for 10 and a half years. And Dad and I always had 3 songs that we could play. He on the guitar and me on the sax. And he's a great musician, but I could make it look like I was a good musician on these 3 songs. And unfortunately for Nick Patterson, who had been playing in a band, 5 Point Remedy with Scott Moss. Right. Nick was at a party that my dad and I were playing at, and he invited me to come play and try out for his band. And I was like, oh no, I told him no for, I think, weeks. And finally I went to his house, and it was him and Corbett Richards from 5 Point Remedy, Evan Seeley playing bass, and they had a brand new singer named Darren Best from Rutherford County. And I'd never heard any of these songs. I mean, I was, been listening to my dad's tape and some bluegrass, and they were playing, this jam band rock and roll stuff. And I just pulled the sax out and played along for 4 hours, and they kind of huddled together and said, yeah, we'd like to have you. And so that started my, band career in Shelby, playing with those guys.
As a saxophone player.
As a sax player, and again, I had only knew 3 songs on the sax at that point in time, and we started practicing in Nick Patterson's garage with legendary sound man Randy Waters. He was, been in the music industry forever. And he came over, and that band, we practiced from January of 2007 till somewhere in August of 2007, every Sunday for 4 hours, and probably only gigged like 5 times.
What was the name of that band?
That band was called Mojo Howlin'. And that was because when Nick would play the harmonica, his dog was named Mojo, would start howling. I mean, over the sound of our practice.
Oh, yeah.
And so we named the band Mojo Howlin', and with 4 hours of practice in 6 months, we went out, and when we gigged, people thought we were the best band, because we were tight.
Yeah, you were.
When you do a festival show and you only get, 45 minutes or an hour,
right.
And for a jam band, that was only like 3 songs.
True.
And so, we would just smoke it, and we kind of made a name for ourselves. And that was in 2007, and our lead singer decided to go in a little different direction, and this is going to tie all these bands together. It's amazing when I started going through this. So in the fall of 2007, Scott Moss was looking for a band, and our band was looking for a singer. And so Nick and Corbett got in contact with Scott, and we met and brought in Lance Watson, who was a mandolin player.
Dirty Grass Soul.
He's playing in Dirty Grass Soul.
As a bass player.
And we brought him in as a bass player, and I think he came in with a fretless bass, if I'm not mistaken. And, he's got so much energy, and Nick was just a great guitar player and harmonica player. And Corbett, I've never to this day played with a drummer that kept you at a level 10 energy, for every song. I mean, we were just so hyped the whole time. And then Scott, of course, best singer. And so that was all in the fall of 2007, and we called that band the Dirty Farm.
Oh, okay.
And we did that for about a whole year. In fact, we opened up for Scott's festival, Dayglow, I think in the fall of 2008.
That's where actually the bus came from that is the bed and breakfast at Scott's.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And Scott was great. That was a great band, and we gigged and toured and that sort of thing. And then like all bands, it's harder to keep a band together than a marriage, and you've got 5 husbands and wives to entertain. True. And so everything just kind of dissolved with that one. But like many musicians in this town, I had been asked to play in some other bands during that same time.
Oh, yeah.
And this, again, all of these musicians, I'm learning different things from each one of these guys. And Evan Seeley, that was the bass player for Mojo Howlin', invited me to play with Ned Lucas, who was, he brought his whole organ and a Leslie cabinet to every show.
Hammond B3.
It was amazing, and John Martin, drummer and band organizer extraordinaire.
Yep.
And they brought in all these people. It's called the All-Star Traffic Jam Band, I think was the name of it. And we played, 5 or 10 times in Shelby and did some private parties. Bobby Jones sat in with us. Randy Saxon sat in with us. Just everybody played in that band. So that was really neat to get to play with those musicians.
It was, yeah.
And there was another band at that time that was pretty popular in Shelby called Calm and Collective.
Right.
They were led by Mike McKinnish. And somewhere or another, we saw each other, and he asked me to play in that band. I had to follow in the footsteps of Phil Lovelace, who is one of the most phenomenal horn players, and especially in this town. Yep. And there was no way to fill his shoes. I'd listened to those CDs they had recorded, and I was like, I can't do this.
Nikhil Wallace, was he the drummer?
Not at that point in time. Okay. It was Vince McClooney.
Okay.
Let's see. In Common Collective at that time, it was Justin Harper, Vince McClooney, Barry Dalton from Rutherford County played bongos, so that was certainly a different sound for any other bands in Shelby. Mike McKinnish on lead sing and guitar, and then I came in on saxophone. And I probably played with that band for 3 or 4 years, and it transitioned a lot as many bands do.
Right.
But and I can keep going if you want me to just keep going.
Yeah, keep on. Yeah, that's the whole idea of this podcast.
Well, I'm trying to think. So with Common Collective and the Dirty Farm that I was playing in, I loved the Dirty Farm because we absolutely, had this festival vibe, and we had these cool fans, and it was just awesome. But we did a lot of practicing and then little gigging. With Common Collective, we never got to practice because we were booked every Thursday, Friday, Saturday somewhere.
That's generally the way it goes. I mean,
that was my favorite part, and of course we weren't getting it. It was not about the money because
it's never about the money.
We always owed more money than we made at the end of the night. But my goodness, played with Stephen Poteet from Rutherford County, one of the greatest guitar players ever. I mean, he's just amazing. Nikhil Wallace came on and started playing drums. We met up with Rocky Goriello and Jonathan Goriello from Rutherford County, 2 phenomenal musicians. John Floyd played bass for that band,
Yeah.
and he's amazing. And Justin Harper, of course, was in that band for a long time. And this is like 2008 fall. The Dirty Farm kind of dissolves away, and we kind of move over into, I'm playing with Common Collective mostly. And another guy pops up. This is another phenomenal musician, Clay Krotz.
Yeah.
I mean, he can sing like no other, and writes good songs, and
he was a fine soccer player too.
Oh, yes, he is, absolutely. And he brought me on with him and Jason Huntsinger, and we played for probably 2 or 3 years together. Every time he would come back to town, he lived in Wilmington most of that time, and we even went down to Wilmington and played some shows. That was fun and interesting. And he was so good, and I miss playing with him. What's up, Clay, if you listen to this? And let's see. So that's all kind of coming together. And unfortunately, I think in the spring of, well, this is not unfortunate, in the spring of 2011, Common Collective switches from a jazz reggae band to a country pop band.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dirty Farm ended in about 2008, and I'm playing with Common Collective, and we've done a great job touring and playing every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we transfer over into this country band, and I pick the fiddle back up.
Oh, okay.
And so that's interesting.
What prompted this transition?
I don't remember exactly, and I hope you get a chance to interview Mike McKinnish, because that was really strange. But it was what the town wanted for sure.
Okay,
the town needed a country band, and you'll see why in just a second. So we played from like January, February, March of 2011 all the way through the summer in a country band called Potter's Clay Project. So we dropped the name Common Collective, switched over to Potter's Clay Project, and somewhere and brought on Lance Watson again. Yeah. He was playing mandolin this time.
Okay.
Brandon Manis from Lincolnton played the drums for us. Justin Harper was on the bass or guitar, and Mike was playing. And then all of a sudden, Mike had to quit singing, and so we were looking for a singer. And Lance was like, "I don't think I can stick around for this. I've got another band I'm starting with, Kevin Dedman. I'm gonna go with Kevin." And in hindsight, that was the right choice for Lance to make, for sure.
I believe it was.
And so that was the time when Lance and Kevin started Dirty Grass Soul, and I mean they have just taken it to the peak.
He was a great interview. I had Kevin on. He was the first show that I aired, and great guy, nice guy.
Oh, absolutely, and a cousin of mine.
Really?
Absolutely. Well, most of our trees around here don't fork too far.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and Kevin has done amazing, and that band, oh my gosh,
yeah, they're good,
and fun, and have such a strong following. And so we needed a singer, and now we needed another musician in the band, and we just happened to run into a guy named Justin Blaylock, and this is probably not a name anybody's familiar with, but he came from, I think, Lincolnton area. And he had the Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard backstory. I mean, a past that would make for a good musician that's going to be famous.
Yes.
And a voice that not only matched that, but exceeded it. I've never heard a singer like Justin Blaylock. And he brought on his own guitar player, and they had a band called the Boxcar Hobos.
Oh, yeah.
And when we would book a show, we wanted to call it Potter's Clay, so we'd say it's the Potter's Clay Project featuring the Boxcar Hobos. And when they'd book a show in Lincolnton, it would be the Boxcar Hobos featuring Potter's Clay Band.
That's good.
And so we worked that out, and then naturally, like all things, that came to an end, and I picked up with another set of ridiculously talented musicians, Josh Allison and Tyler Melton. I mean,
I do know them very well.
And I hope you get a chance to interview both of them. Josh comes from a second generation.
He does. I've done his father.
Oh, really? That's awesome, yeah, because, that's great musicians there. And they had a little duo they called the Josh and Tyler Show.
Yep.
And they would have me on featuring Jackson Martin on sax, and we probably did that for 2 or 3 whole years.
He's playing with Kevin. They're playing with Kevin Bridges now, and they're called, with Todd Hamby, and they're called Kill Devils.
My goodness. Well, that's what they needed to be doing. I mean, those guys are so talented, that you hate to see any of it wasted. And I'm glad to hear that, because in 2014, I think I played my last show with those guys, and I haven't touched the sax again until like 3 months ago. My church asked me to play it, and so really? I played for church. And so that's 2014, and this is 2019. That's a long time to not play the sax.
Have you been playing the fiddle during that time?
Not a lick. Again, well, I'll take that back. I still know my one song on the fiddle, and I have actually played it at many weddings and funerals, and I still know my 3 songs on the sax and have played, them maybe at some weddings or some funerals. But as far as any performance, not since 2014.
And we'll go into why all that changed.
Yeah. Oh, man. That led right into it. So, along about 2012, I was gigging at a pretty common place, and I'd also at this time like to give a shout out to all the musicians that I've been involved with, but also the venues that have provided the place. Starting back with, for me, and this is my generation, Ichabod's, Arizona's, then Pleasant City, Mi Pueblitos, Helms.
Yeah.
Those places. I mean, we played at all those, and they kept us going, and provided the nightlife that everybody was entertained by.
And that's good too, because actually the first person that's brought up venues, it's changed over the years since I've been here. Actually, you can stay in Shelby and play jobs now, as opposed to most of the jobs you have here in town being private functions.
Right.
Or DAVs or MVETs, private clubs. So it's changed, and for the better. And your generation actually have gotten benefit from that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I hear, the old stories about, people playing in the same places, for years before us. And so, glad to have those venues, and glad they supported the musicianship. So I was playing at one of those, and I won't say which one exactly, but I finished playing a sax solo that, I thought was pretty good, and my guitar player had definitely just played a solo that I thought was the best thing I'd ever heard. And I expected to look up and see the crowd on their feet, just applauding and saying, "This is amazing." And we got the typical golf clap from, it was a restaurant, so we shouldn't have expected that. But, I thought it was so good. And
I know that feeling very well.
We put it, and I'm not bitter about that at all, because it was, that's commonplace. And
it is.
I put on my iPod, and during one of the breaks, and out of nowhere came like 50 people, and they just started dancing to what I had put on the iPod. Now that was a little heartbreaking to know that those 50 people were in there and weren't out there for us playing.
Right.
And so I think I let that iPod play for like 45 minutes, and I went up to the bar manager and I said, what do you think about me coming in here and DJing? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And I said, well, what's the pay? And he said, well, it's the same thing we pay the band,
Oh,
and I was like, wait a minute.
That's good.
I got a 6-person band
exactly.
that has been practicing music, for 20 years and has all this equipment, and I'm going to get paid the same amount to come in with my iPod. And he's like, yeah, that's just what we pay. And I was like, well, I think I'll give that a try.
Really?
And so that began my DJ Wolfman career. And it was pretty easy. I already had all the sound equipment, to run a good show, and I had a laptop, and I had iTunes, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was the right age. I mean, I was 25, and all of the people in the bar were 25, so I knew what the good songs were.
Yeah, your playlist was appropriate for
exactly,
the time.
and they all loved it, and it went great. And then what was really helpful, I had a cousin who asked me to DJ for a couple of his parties, and he was a little younger than me, and so he introduced me to that music.
Right.
So, from the kids that were 21 up to me, I think I was 25 or 26, I had the spread covered there. And so I was DJing around town probably, once a month, sometimes probably once a week, just depending on what venue would pick me up. And then, of course, somebody asked me to DJ a wedding. I did not know what I was getting into.
Whole different thing.
A wedding is a very precise one chance. When you're gigging, it's ad lib and do whatever you want to.
Right.
When it's a wedding, you've got one chance to make everything right. And I jumped right in there and bought all the right equipment which was important, and started DJing. And now, that was in 2013. I think I did my first wedding, and now this is 2019. I do about 10 or 20 weddings a year. 10 to 20 weddings and big events.
Right.
It's pretty much every other weekend.
Do you still take it into the clubs ever?
Not at all anymore. I think I did that about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was great and it was fun, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
To go into a club and play.
It is.
Well, I have rambled on a long time.
You have, and it's been a really good ramble. I've enjoyed it so much. You've had okay. Now you no longer teach school. You want to go into some of that? You want to plug some of the other stuff you do?
Well, sure. In 2016, a little game I invented called Coin Hole. It's a tabletop coin bouncing game. We shot a video in my kitchen that went viral on the internet, and we sold.
Okay, I'm back here talking with Jackson Martin, and I was just bridging the part from his musical career and teaching to what he's currently doing outside of DJing. All right, so you're no longer teaching school. What happens here?
Man, so in 2016, a video that we shot on I guess I need to start that over. A game that I invented in 2008 called Coin Hole. It's a tabletop coin bouncing game.
Now, how did you come up with this idea?
A friend of mine asked me to make a mini set of cornhole boards,
right,
and I bounced a quarter onto it and was like, oh, you could play quarters onto this board. And didn't really think that was a great idea, but 30 minutes later, the name Coin Hole came to mind, and I started sweating and shaking and immediately, trademarked the name.
With a C-O-I-N.
Yes,
hole.
Coin Hole, yes. Bouncing coins. And as soon as I, had the name, I thought I was going to be a billionaire. I was, ready to quit teaching then, and of course couldn't sell it to anybody, didn't know how to sell it. And then in 2016, after sitting on it, for 8 years, a video that we shot in my kitchen it has over 20 million views on Facebook now.
That's great.
And so that really helped us, sell the product. And so now I run a shop in my backyard, Martin's Woodworking, and it's kind of seasonal. So all year long we have 2 or 3 full-time employees, and at Christmas time we'll ramp up. Last year we had 56 people.
Wow.
And so we hope to see that again this Christmas.
Wow,
we hope big. The sales are there.
Yeah, that's going great guns.
It's been pretty good, and then like I say, it's so seasonal that this spring I had the great idea of buying an old family house that my great-grandfather on my mom's side, this is Jack Hunt's dad's house, I decided to buy it and turn it into a bed and breakfast, and so that's where we're sitting today.
It is.
A 1926 built old homestead of the Hunts that we call the Hunt House, and it's been up and running now for about 2 months.
Oh, okay. So you want to tell us what you do here? Might as well plug it.
Oh, sure. This, it's all traditional furniture, handmade by, most of it, all the bedroom suites are handmade by Michael W. Green Antique Restoration and Replication. And, we rent it's 5 bed, 5 bath. We rent it by the night. Again, it's a handmade bed with handmade furniture, TVs in each room. It's just a really jam up house. And then, of course, we rent the whole house by the night also. And believe it or not, it's really taken off. We're in a good location. We have 30 wedding venues in Cleveland County,
and so have a lot.
We feel like that's a good avenue for us to go with. We have the Ambassador Baptist College, which is just right across the road, and so we feel like when their parents are coming to visit, they'll need a nice place to stay. And Lattimore's the kind of town that, if you want to get out of the city, this would be a great place to come. So we think that it's going to work for us.
Now, do you DJ events here?
Not yet, and I don't know that I would DJ. I think that might be a time where we might actually pull out some instruments and play a little bit on the front porch.
That's what I was going with that. I was coming back to the music part to see if we're adding music to this venue at some point.
Oh my goodness. No particular plans at this time. I might be stretched a little thin as it is already.
You think? Well, listen, I know you're a busy person, and I do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to let me and Cleveland County know about your life. It's a part of Cleveland County musical history.
Well, I like to say it's an honor to even be considered part of it, and it was my pleasure and glad to do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, man.